Okay, so today's tomato review is going to be a little different, and it's on this tomato called the Zima tomato. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the packaging first. Try to zoom you out. And so I've been seeing these tomatoes for quite a while in the store. And I've been wanting to try these and actually buy them to eat and that kind of a thing. And so I just didn't want to spring the $3 or $4 to buy them. And when I'm growing as many tomatoes as I do, I really don't need to go buying tomatoes, but I always like to try something new. And I've been seeing this thing in the store for a while, and it's always there. And they seem to sell quite a bit of them. So I'm under the impression that there's something really special about this tomato. So I figured, you know what, let me do this and purchase these tomatoes, and I can get the seed from them, which is really important for me. I can also grow them out and see if they come true. Now, I don't know if these are a hybrid or anything like that, but I wanted to buy these tomatoes and do a review on them and try them. And then I'll save the seeds, and then next year I will plant them out and see if we can get more of these tomatoes out of it. So it won't be an ongoing series, but I will do a video next year of me growing them out, and let's see what we can get out of this, because I find this tomato a little bit on the interesting side, and I'll get into those reasons a little bit. But let's talk about the company first, which is called Sunset. And they're one of the companies that are kind of known for selling really exotic tomatoes and proprietary type tomatoes. They're basically tomatoes that are exclusive to certain companies. In other words, you can't really buy these tomato seeds. You can't really buy the tomatoes. Only restaurants will be able to get access to them and things like that. You got to get licensed a lot of times to buy these specialty tomatoes, like the Kumato. That's another tomato I'm going to be reviewing in the future. Unfortunately, I can't grow them right now because I can't really get the seeds. And the reason why I can't get the seeds is you really can't trust any vendor really to sell you the seeds to those tomatoes. You really have to buy the tomatoes themselves and get the seeds directly from the tomato. There's only a couple places I may be able to actually buy the fresh tomatoes. They don't sell them around by me, but there are a couple of places that actually sell those fresh tomatoes, and from there I can harvest the seeds, and then I can slowly work that seed into my growing routine every year. But Sunset is one of the companies that's kind of known to grow these really oddball tomatoes. Now, I'm only under the assumption that this is a hybrid tomato. So I don't believe this is a natural tomato. It's probably crossed several different ways to get this. It probably won't come true next year. It'll turn into something else. But then again, I don't know. That's the reason why I started these videos, is to actually break the myths and separate the myths from the facts and show you what the actual results are. So we don't know if this will actually do it or not. So let's test it and see what it does. So it's called the Zima tomato, I'm under the impression. I don't really know that much about it. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read all the fine print. I'll put it up nice and close to the camera, so hopefully that'll pick it up and read it. And I'll just scan you down so you can read all the details on it. Okay. There's really nothing else to really show you other than the barcode on the back and the packaging. And I had already opened this and tried a few of them already, and I really find this a very interesting tomato. It reminds me a lot of the Galapagos Island tomato. If you've never grown a Galapagos Island tomato, it's not a Solanum Lycopersicum. It's not your normal Lycopersicum tomato. It's a different tomato altogether. It's a Galapagos, the Galapagosium or something it's called. It's not a regular Lycopersicum tomato. Most of the tomatoes you grow and you buy in a store are Lycopersicum tomatoes or pimpinellifolium tomatoes. There's only a couple It's not like peppers. You got chianses, you got anims, you got pubescens, you got picadums. You got all these different types of subspecies of peppers that you have, and they're very identifiable, and they're very unique. But with tomatoes, you don't really have that many. You only got maybe, I think, 4 or 5, maybe a half dozen varieties out there. Lycopersicum's one of them, pimpinellifolium's another one, and there's like maybe 3 others that I kind of know if they're just not on the tip of my tongue right now. And the Galapagos Island tomato is called the Galapagosium or Galapagosi or something like that. It's a totally different species of tomato altogether. So it's very important that you keep that in mind when you're starting to explore a little bit with the tomatoes. So this is what we got here, and here's a better look at the tomato. And you can see that it has an unusual shape. They're kind of long, like. Look at how long they are. Okay, they're kind of long. They're orange in color. It's an unusual orange for a tomato. It's like a neon orange almost. And they're small, like the size of a cherry tomato, but an elongated, really strange shaped tomato. That's the first thing that got my attention with this. Again, I don't know what this is. It could be a different species altogether. It could be a Lycopersicum variant Galapagosius. I don't know. I have no idea what the actual thing is. I have to do a little research. I didn't do any research online about this tomato, so it might actually be one of those rare species. I have to honestly say, after tasting a few of these, they're very, very amazingly tasting tomatoes. Like I say, there's a certain taste that reminds me a lot of the Galapagos Island tomato, which has a very unique flavor. It's very different from a lot of the other tomatoes. It doesn't just have like a tomato flavor. It has like its own kind of flavor. Yeah, it kind of tastes like a tomato. It gives you that same tomato effect, but there's something about it that's different in the taste. And this kind of does the same thing for me. And so I cut one open. So I have to hold the tomatoes very, because the autofocus on this thing is non-fast reacting. It takes about a minute sometimes to get the focus to decide when it wants to focus. So I have to be patient. I try to edit some of the stuff out and just give it a focus. But that's what it looks like on the inside. It's bichambered. And it doesn't look like there's very many seeds in this thing at all, from what I could see. It's got seed pockets, but as you could see, if you look through the translucent part, you don't really see that many seeds in there. So it's not a heavily seeded tomato. And let's give it a taste test and see what it tastes like, and I'll try to describe the flavor for you. Okay, first of all, the tang on it. And some people ask me, what do I mean by tang? The tang is like the acidity part, but the tang affects a certain region of your tongue. And for people who are trying to develop their tasting ability for food, you need to understand how your tongue detects flavors. And when I say tang, I'm usually trying to refer to the region of your tongue that's affected by that acidity flavor. Sometimes it's sour, sometimes it's lemony, sometimes it's very mouth puckering. There's a lot of different effects to the tang. But yes, that would be like the acidic part, where a lot of people would refer to that tangy effect as the acidity. So when I say the tang, I'm referring to the region of your tongue that's being affected by the acidic part of it. So when I say tangy, if I tell you 30% tangy, that's about normal for a tomato. That if you're eating any tomatoes in your life, that tangy flavor tends to be what I'm referring to. So it's very similar in effect to that region of your tongue. And then I talk about the sweetness, which is the sugar content in it, and that a lot of times works with it or contrasts it. And of course, then I mention the stuff in between it, which is how watery it is. And then there's a tomato aftertaste, a tomato flavor aftertaste that kind of lingers around in your mouth after the tangy part has done its part. And that's the whole effect of that tomato. That's why tomatoes are so desirable, is because it leaves a nice aftertaste in your mouth that draws you back into want to have another tomato. It's that kind of a fruit. It can be very addictive. So that's what I mean by tangy and acidity. I just want to get that straight because some people are asking me about that. And I just want you to understand what I mean by that. So let me taste this one. I already forgot what the first half tasted like. It's got an incredible flavor. Perfect tangy flavor and perfect sweetness combination. This is probably a little higher in the tangy. I'm probably going to say 35 plus on the tangy. It's a little higher than normal, but it has a good amount of sweetness that kind of offsets that tanginess, so your mouth ain't going to pucker. It's just going to last longer in your mouth. The flavor is going to sit there for a little while. So normally, if you're getting a 30% tang and a 30% on the sweetness, the flavor will last for like a minute, and then your mouth kind of, it just balances out and you lose that flavor. This kind of lasts a little longer than that because of the higher levels of content between the tang and the sweetness. So like I say, this is probably 35 on the tang, and then on the tomato, I'm going to say it's probably about 30 plus percent, maybe 32. And that combination really causes that flavor to stick around a little bit. And it just tastes really, really good. It's got a perfect amount of moisture in it, in between it. The tomato flavor itself, the aftertaste, lingers in your mouth for a little while after you eat it. So once that flavor starts to die down, you're going to want to go for another one. It's that kind of a tomato. It draws you back into it. Let me eat a whole one and see if I can just get a full effect from it. It's got a lot of different flavor profiles to it. Very interesting tomato. It hits your mouth. The aftertaste is what really is incredible about this. This tomato literally draws you back in. It's almost like it's designed to draw you into the tomato. There's no way you're going to eat one of these tomatoes and stop. Once you start with one, you're like, man, I gotta have it. After your mouth is kind of like settled, you immediately go back for another one. That's how good of a tomato this is. Absolutely delicious tomato. I have to say, it's going to be very hard for me to squeeze seeds from these because I want to eat that whole package right now. And believe me, to polish that little thing off, no problem. I can eat that in a couple handfuls, gone. It's that good of a tomato. Incredible tomato. I couldn't imagine making a sauce with this. It's just an incredible tomato. You can literally use it for anything. It's probably great for snacking. It's probably great in salads. You could probably make a really nice sauce with it. And you could probably put these on barbecue shish kebabs. You know, you take your shish kebabs, you squeeze those, you slide them on there. They'll probably work with that. Again, cook your meats, cook all your main part of the barbecue, your shish kebab first, Cook that whole thing first, then pull all your stuff off it, then re-skew everything and throw these in between it. You ain't going to get better than that. This thing's literally unbelievable. But as far as the texture of it, the texture is kind of funny. It's almost like, I don't know how to describe it. It's not crunchy and it's not mushy soft. It's got a very weird kind of a feel in your mouth. Not disgusting or anything like that. It's just weird. It's almost like eating like a soft rubbery candy or something. I can't even describe the effect of it. It's not totally incredible, but it's different. I notice it. And if you're cracking them down really fast, you're munching them up, you ain't going to notice it. But if you pay attention like I'm doing to all the little nuances and details, you pick these things up. It's just got a weird kind of flesh on it. It's really kind of strange. It's meaty-like. For a little cherry tomato, usually cherry tomatoes, you bite them and they melt in your mouth and they're gone. This is like meaty, in other words. The flesh on it, you can chew it like. It's strange. The skins do not get stuck in your mouth at all. They break right up nicely. You're not getting skin stuck to the roof of your mouth or anything like that. This is a very, very nice tomato. So I am definitely going to rate this like a number 1 tomato, even though this is just a store-bought review for the tomato. I'm definitely rating this thing as a number 1, probably next to the black cherry tomato. The flavor on this thing is incredible. It's not quite the same as black cherry because black cherry is really unique and got its own flavor. So I'm not going to say it's better or worse. It's just different. And it's definitely up there in my number 1 smaller cherry type tomatoes. This is by far some of the best I've ever eaten. Very interesting flavor sensation, very interesting tomato experience when you eat these things. I definitely say if you see them in the store, pick them up and give them a try. Okay, so that's your tomato review for the Zima tomato. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you on the next one. Take care.